Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Well, hey, let's get back to you a little bit. So what was the time that you spent with the city of Los Angeles as a ethics guy? Describe that a little bit.
Yeah, so, LA had a reputation for having some corruption problems in the 80s and 90s. And the city created two separate commissions. They created a police commission to oversee LAPD. This is after Rodney King and Rampart and some of that. And they created an ethics commission, which is to oversee all the elected officials in the city of LA and the high level employees. So, I was brought in to run the enforcement division. So I was the head prosecutor. So, I would oversee the election, oversee Gruel versus Garcetti, and deal with any ethical issues. So government ethics laws, campaign finance, election. I was basically the watchdog of the city of LA. And I took the position because it was a prosecution type position, but it was also quasi-political, and it was really a stepping stone to be a judge. And that was the plan. So, I was doing narcotics, and, my daughter was born in San Diego. My wife said, we're doing narcotics, we're doing cartel prosecution. It's probably not the safest job when you just had a kid. At the time, there was like $1 million bounty on AUSAs and DEA agents, during some of the heyday of the cartel violence. So, I kind of took a step back, came back to LA where my wife's family's from. My son was born back to back, a little over a year apart. Started doing public corruption and was being vetted for the bench by the California governor at the time. And that's when, we looked at our finances and realized we're spending more on childcare than we were making. And we had to sort of make a decision. But I love the job, fun job, because you were really sort of digging into some of the underbelly of politics. And I mean, we're seeing at a pretty high level now with the federal government and all the allegations of corruption on both sides. But even at the local level, a city like LA, it was pretty bad. And recently, since I left, you've had 3 council members that have been under indictment in the city of LA, prosecuted by the feds, doing federal prison time. So pretty fun job. And also you're dealing with the dirtiness of politics, unfortunately.
I don't think a lot of people understand how big of a budget a city like Los Angeles has. I mean, you're talking billions and billions of dollars. And I'll give you a little example of some of the things that I've experienced. We were doing some business with South Africa, and we actually had a big contract all lined up. And my distributor over there calls me up and he said, "Hey, I got some bad news, man." He said, "Everybody from the head of the South Africa police services and about 3 levels down have all been fired. Most of them are in jail because of just the corruption." And, you get a lot of these people that they work their way up from, various jobs, but a lot of them come from poor communities. And all of a sudden they're in charge of some multi-million-dollar budget, and different vendors will come in. And this is exactly what happened with South Africa. I mean, some of those guys literally grew up in little concrete brick homes with dirt floors. And then the apartheid happened. And so all of a sudden they're in charge of millions and millions of dollars. And some vendor comes in and says, "Hey, give me the business and we'll give you this." And it's your typical corruption case. And next thing you know, they're getting slipped, envelopes of money and under the table. But that money has to get tracked somewhere. You can't just all of a sudden show up with a Mercedes Benz and somebody goes, "Oh, wow, you're doing that on a government salary." And, it's hard. It's easy to understand, actually. But at the same time, you expect that, your government officials to not have that corruption, but it's so widespread.
It is. And, we talked about drugs, right? And, someone has an opportunity to make 5 or 10 times as much money, and participating in the drug trade. We see it a lot in college sports, for instance, right? You got kids out of school, they're making millions of dollars for their universities and just the economics make sense to pay them. It's not right. Now, obviously, some of that's changed with the NIL and recently, but then you're looking at government officials, right? They're responsible for, multi-billion-dollar budgets, and they're giving out contracts, right? Sometimes there are these no bid contracts, or, again, not saying it's right, but you kind of look at the economics, and there's a reason why people try to bribe them, and they accept bribes because the deals are worth that much. Or in a city like LA, where the entitlements and permits and real estate is so valuable, right? You get approval to build a big development. That's worth a lot of money as a real estate developer. That's why you just see so much of this corruption on the real estate side, because people are trying to get permits. People are trying to get things expedited to move things along, to grease the wheel. Again, not an excuse at all. It's a crime. It should be prosecuted. But that's why you see so much on it when you have this really sort of disparity in economics and all these different situations. It ends up being a big problem.
Yeah, I don't know if you're a fan of that. I think it's on Netflix, the Lincoln Lawyer series.
I've watched it. Yes, it's very good. It's very well made. I've actually done some commentary on it. It's interesting because you could tell that they have really good legal analysts and writers in the show, because they're really kind of getting into the substance of some of the California criminal law. So I think it's a very well-made show on Netflix. I like it.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed that 2 seasons, I think, but especially that second season. They're talking about all that real estate and, the battle between, the restaurant owner and the big developer, and kind of that whole thing. It was pretty interesting. So a little plug there for Lincoln Lawyer and Netflix.
But yeah, definitely check it out. It's good, folks.
Yeah. Well, as a former military guy, I can definitely tell the shows that have really good military advisors and the ones that don't. And, you can just look at uniforms and go, oh man, whoever their advisor is just dropping the ball there. So, well, you have, one of the things I wanted to ask you. So, have you ever heard of the CSI effect?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I do live trial commentary.
Okay.
I'm one of the few former prosecutors that doesn't do defense work. So, networks will bring me in when they're covering live trials as their play-by-play guy. So
okay.
I'll do it most days. They'll run the trial. The witnesses are taking the stand. So jury selection to opening statements. So yeah, I know it very well. Jurors expect to see that forensic evidence. So if you don't have, the forensic expert or the pathologist, or, they expect to see that. So kind of no body cases or cases without ballistic experts, or the jurors are kind of sitting there, scratching their heads. They expect to see that type of evidence, and CSI, I think, is a big reason for that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. But the particular way that it's been described to me by a lot of CSIs and detectives in today's, especially the courts, is the show CSI, when it came about, it kind of warped a lot of the people in the community, where they'll look at certain cases and they'll be like, hey, why isn't this thing solved yet? This trial's been going, or this investigation's been going for years. Why does it take so long? And so they have to re-educate the jury on really what it actually takes to solve a crime, and including the investigation and developing all of the evidence, so that not only are they actually showing that the suspect is guilty, but also that it's rock solid. It's not, there's no real cases. And the CSI effect, I think, is kind of the, cases can't be solved in 43 minutes like what they show on TV. So is there something similar to that on the lawyer side?
It is. So, when I was a prosecutor, I would tell folks, it's not what I know, it's what I can prove, right? I want to bring a case. I want it to be bulletproof. I want it to be ironclad. I want to get 12 out of 12 beyond a reasonable doubt, and I want them to deliberate for an hour or two. And when you come with that overwhelming evidence, one, you make sure that you're not ever prosecuting an innocent person. That's your nightmare if you're a DA or U.S. attorney, right? But, more than that, you present that overwhelming evidence of guilt, and guess what you get? You get a pretty quick guilty plea. You save a lot of time, and you put someone away. You can kind of move on to the next case. So, on one hand, I get it. People expect crimes to be solved right away. But also, we talked about Rex Heuermann, right? Here's someone with 7 burner phones, right? You talk about Brian Koberger, right? People are a lot more sophisticated now, They're not taking their cell phone to the scene of the murder, right? He reportedly left it someplace else or turned it off or put it in airplane mode. So, on one hand, law enforcement has these advances in technology, but a lot of folks now are careful what they search up on their phone because they know that internet search history is there forever, who they call or who they text. So, as law enforcement kind of gets the advantage, I like to bring up OJ, right? The OJ jurors, they didn't believe in DNA evidence, but now no one disputes it. So folks are a lot more careful. Someone like Brian Koberger reportedly wore gloves everywhere he went, even though it was one of the most gruesome crime scenes in recent memory. 4 people stabbed in a home where you expect there to be DNA everywhere. There's only a single source of DNA at that scene. And there's a lot of other folks' DNA. So, people are becoming a lot more sophisticated, even on the criminal side, which makes it not necessarily as easy to gather evidence as folks would think.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've known of cases where a serial rapist was wearing multiple layers of clothing and gloves and everything else, to try to, not leave his DNA. But eventually, especially I'm more on the DNA side, obviously. And when you're sloughing off 400,000 cells a day, eventually we're going to catch you. So that's the good news. But, and frankly, I can't imagine anything, committing any crime in multiple layers of clothing and a mask and 2 layers of gloves and all that, trying to rumble around is going to be actually any fun anyway. So
yeah, but we're seeing a lot more. I mean, just bringing up another kid, multiple layers of clothing. I mean, Alex Murdaugh, right? Huge case, convicted of killing his wife and kid there in South Carolina. One of the things the defense argued is, look, there's no blood splatter, right? You kill someone close range with a shotgun, with a rifle. Why is there no blood splatter on the clothes? So again, like you said, changes of clothing and those types of things are what we're seeing now from some of these folks.
Yeah. The criminals are getting smarter, but that's why we're constantly developing technology to counterbalance that. So here's another question for you. As an attorney, it just seems to me like there are so many plea deals. Why is that? And how has that come to be over the years? It just seems that there's cases that you wonder why people aren't being arrested and actually prosecuted, and then you learn they get a plea deal, and it's so. Explain that process.
Yeah, so I can tell you that I'm a fan of more prosecutions. I'm a former prosecutor, so you're not talking to a criminal defense lawyer. I think the people that commit crimes should be prosecuted, and they should be prosecuted aggressively. When it comes to plea deals, a lot of it is frankly an issue of resources. Judges, they don't have time or the resources to try every case. Same thing with prosecutors. Sometimes they have dozens, maybe more than 100 cases that they have to deal with. And if you can't move your files, then you're going to get bogged down and things are going to pile up, and you're going to be stuck in a situation where you're not getting the convictions that you need. The system isn't set up for every case to go to trial. Even on the civil side, when I'm representing victims, I can tell you that on the civil side, 98% of cases, they settle. Trials are expensive and they take time, they take money. Jurors don't want to be there. Most people don't get that, summons for jury duty, and they jump out of their seat and they want to do it. So, obviously I would like to do it. I'm sure you'd like to do it because of your background, but most folks don't. So, that being said, I think sometimes, some deals are given that shouldn't be given. I don't like to give significant discounts, especially if someone's going to step up to the plate and accept responsibility and present some sort of mitigation package and try to get their life back on track. That's one thing. But, if they're going to deny responsibility, lie about it, perjure themselves, lie to the jury, try to mislead the judge, for that, everyone has a constitutional right to a jury trial. I accept that, but I don't think that person should be getting any type of deal. The other big reason deals are given is, frankly, you need to cooperate, right? So if I'm prosecuting the head of the cartel, that guy is going to go nowhere near the drugs, right? He's going to pick up the phone and he's going to call his lieutenant and the product's going to move. So I got to flip people, kind of peel back those layers of the onion till I get to the guy that's the target of my investigation. So sometimes the deals are out of necessity because I need cooperation, not necessarily because I'm busy and I can't try all the cases.
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.